Olympus has just released a new lens roadmap. And there are some new interesting lenses coming up. Let's see what those lenses are. Hi there, my name is Peter Forsgaard and I am an Olympus visionary and a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And before we start talking about the new lens roadmap that Olympus just released, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that bell so you get notified when there is a new video online. My channel is all about you getting to be a better photographer and of course also about Olympus gear. But let's start. Well, it's a very good news that Olympus released this new lens roadmap right now because of the information and news we got last week. Let's look what's in it. On the lens roadmap, the top part is for M.Zuiko Pro lenses and the bottom part of the chart is for M.Zuiko lenses. There aren't any M.Zuiko premium lenses anymore. They are considered to be M.Zuiko lenses now. The two lenses that were added are Pro lenses, which is an interesting thing because Olympus is really trying to make a better selection of Pro lenses, and they're adding two now. The first one is 8 to 25mm f4 lens, a Pro lens, and then there is a new macro lens, a Pro macro lens in the range around 100mm. But let's start with the 8 to 25mm f4 Pro lens first. That's an interesting focal length area. There is a 7 to 14mm f2.8 lens already, and this is in line with the f4 lenses. And now there will be a wide-angle zoom as a 4 or f4 aperture, fastest aperture, and that means that most likely that lens will be a bit smaller or quite a bit smaller than the 7 to 14mm lens, which is a good thing because Olympus system is nice and compact, and like the 12 to 45mm f4 goes really well with the EM5 Mark III, and I bet this new wide-angle zoom is going to be a really good lens for those who like to have your the gear a bit smaller, and that's good news. And what the actual angle of view will be is not told yet. Of course, there are no real specs yet except the focal length and the fastest aperture. But the 7 to 14mm has a 114 degree angle at the 7mm end, so that will be about 110 maybe with the 8mm, because the 8mm is not going to be a fisheye like the 8mm f1.8 Pro lens is. This is going to be a normal lens. And the angle of view of 25mm is, let me check, I always forget this, that's about 47 degrees. So it will be around that, the 25mm. And I think this is going to be a very interesting lens. And then the second lens, the 100mm Pro macro lens. And this is a bit different because both macro lenses that Olympus now have are the 30mm f3.5, and then there is the 60mm f2.8. Those both lenses are not Pro lenses, even though the 60mm f2.8 lens is weather sealed, so it's kind of like a Pro grade lens, but it's not considered to be a Pro lens. So this is a very good addition to the Pro lineup of M.Zuiko lenses. And what's also interesting is that it's a bit longer than the 60mm lens, the macro lens. And that's a good thing because usually it's a good thing if the macro is a bit longer, so it's a small telephoto. That's because then you can have your camera further away from your subject. And there are and there are two good things about this. The first one is that if let's say that you are photographing small bugs, that won't scare the bugs away when you can be a bit further away. And then of course, if you are a bit further away, you can fit some light between your lens or camera and your subject. It makes it a lot easier to make macros. Even though the 30mm is a good lens, it has a bit disadvantage on this side. 60mm is still a good option for macro, but this is going to be really interesting. And I'm really glad that Olympus did, because this is something that quite a lot of us has been requesting that Olympus should have this lens, and I agree. This is going to be really interesting. Let's hope that it will be on the market next summer, when you can really do some macro shooting, bugs and stuff, flowers, whatever you like to do outdoors in macro. No more info about other than the focal length range. It's about 100, as you can see from the lens roadmap. I would predict that it is a f4 lens, because then it would be quite small, and with macro you don't really need really fast lens because you want to have depth of field and you need to stop down anyway. So a fast macro lens, there's no sense in my opinion. So most likely it will be 4. But remember, this is only my predictions. The only thing we know so far is that there's going to be roughly 100mm macro lens. And then Olympus released some new info about the 150 to 400mm f4.5 Pro Zoom lens. And here is a picture of the final version of that lens. And they say that it will be released in the winter of 2021. So it will take half a year still that you can get this lens. But I'm glad that this lens is finally coming, because they've been releasing it like 3 times. And the first release was 2019, when E-M1X was released. It was released at the same time. And speaking of the E-M1X, it will get a new firmware upgrade also in the winter of 2021. I would suspect that this will happen at the same time and as well when the 150 to 400mm f4.5 lens is actually available. And the firmware upgrade will include at least some new subject recognition AI, and it will be birds. And that's huge. If that really happens, which I wouldn't say why not if they say that, it will be huge, because that's something that will be mind-blowing. If you can, the camera can recognize a bird with its AI subject recognition thing. So that's huge, and that's something that Olympus has said that they are making it better and introducing more subjects, and now it's happening, but not quite yet. Next year, in the beginning of next year, winter of 2021. And then Olympus released OMD webcam beta version, which means that you can use the same cameras that can be used tethered to your computer can be used as webcams. There is a link in the description of the video where you can download that and try it for yourself. I have not had time to test it yet, but I will make a video about that as soon as I have time to test it. But this is really good that you can actually use your Olympus OMD camera as a webcam. Unfortunately, OMD EM5 Mark III is not on the list. That's because that cannot be used as a tethered camera. So you cannot shoot with that when it's connected to a computer. It just doesn't work. That's a pity. So, here is something that you might want to watch next. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.